In recent years, the topic of sustainability has become a major subject of interest. In the world of fashion, the utilization of more sustainable practices is being adopted by more and more designers. But with all of this positive conversation, are we actually acting sustainably? This is Undressing Reality. Consumption and manufacturing play a large role in the progress of sustainability. The millennial generation, being the largest upcoming consumer group, are shaping up to be one of the first demographics to responsibly act on sustainability. Speaking to industry professionals on this subject, I investigated whether or not these experts have seen a shift in consumption habits from the baby boomers and Generation X to the millennials.
The boomers really were the population that gravitated to much of the sameness, whether that be television, whether that be pop art. And what I'm finding is that the millennial has more independent thought, in the sense that they're picking and choosing and personalizing more so for themselves. The boomer at the time really wanted everything the same and had to have it right now. Everybody still wants it right now, but the millennial has more choice and more ability to self-select and pick something that's specially made for them. There's much more access to information for product, and the boomers wanted to conform. They wanted conformity, and they wanted to look pretty similar within their genre. And I'm finding the millennial very expressive, willing to change their look, their mood several times a day, because they can, not only choice, and they know how to.
I think that the way people choose what they buy has changed so much, and that's definitely generational. There's always been a word of mouth. I think that the thing that social media is so genius at is that it takes this idea of word of mouth, of picking up things that you heard someone said was great, and it just takes it to a whole other level. So I do think, I think baby boomers probably bought what their friends and friends of friends said was great, what their Avon lady said was great. It's always been, give me a recommendation. I think that's, people have always gravitated towards that when they buy anything, but particularly fashion and particularly beauty. That sort of dynamic has just like infinity, quadruple, it's multiplied by infinity, when with social media, because you can tell hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people what you like and what you think is cool, and other people will believe you because people believe word of mouth. So I think basically it's word of mouth squared.
Millennials love to shop, but they don't always have a lot of money. So there's been more of a resurgence of individual trends and support for smaller designers in that same way.
Especially nowadays with social media, the internet, you can't really get away with anything anymore, which I think is a good thing. Our manufacturer that we're working with now recycles 98% of all the water used, which is incredible, and all of the chemicals they use it's a closed loop production system, and they have a natural bacteria that eats the indigo dye, so they're able to reuse the water constantly, which I think is incredible. There's a lot of sustainable progressiveness, but I find it a little slow, which is surprising. Because at this rate, the damage is done when you look at a lot of the fast fashion factories, and especially the factories in third world countries. There's a lot of damage done, and we can't revert it, but we need to just stop and start making those changes.
You know what, it's been a slow take on that. It's been, again, in the fur industry, we've been doing a lot of research and development that we can produce and reduce our footprint. In the manufacturing range, it's a slow one, again, in order to get the new finishes, the new dyes, the amalgamation of synthetics with naturals. It's something that a lot of companies are slowly taking note. I think really it's the dyeing and all the starches and all of the finishes that they're figuring out ways that it can become it's less harmful to the environment, and really less harmful to the end user, which is the consumer.
You see it more on social media, that's for sure. You see more stores that are being, whether it's an online store or a physical store that's focusing on only carrying sustainable products or conscious products. I think more people are becoming interested in it. I think that also, it has to do, going back to the internet, our eyes are open to so many things that kind of used to take us time to learn, or used to have to go to a library, I guess, and to really to learn about these cultures. And even when I first started traveling, I remember I didn't have any technology with me. Social media wasn't a thing. Like, I had Facebook when I first started traveling, but all that other stuff wasn't a thing. So I was really, really disconnected, and like what I experienced was something that I hadn't seen before, but I feel like now maybe more of the world is seen, and it's, the idea and being able to see all of these artisans making products online. If I were a designer, immediately that's what I would jump to, and I think that will probably helps draw the interest to better practices.
In terms of marketing, it's a marketing trend. I don't necessarily think it's a trend in design. I think in design and in branding, it's more of a philosophy that the company's chosen to have or not chosen to have. When it gets slapped on as a label, it usually ends up being discovered it's really just a buzzword. With consumers, I think it depends on the consumer group. I don't think the baby boomers and a lot of the Xers really care that much about the sustainability, or they care on a quiz or on a survey, but when it comes to paying a bigger price for that object, I don't know that they really care or see it as a trend that much. I don't know that many of them will go out and seek information. I think with the millennials, they've grown up with this knowledge. They've witnessed climate change. They've grown up with recycling from the time they were born. All of these things they've known already. So I think sustainability for them is a natural path.
I think that it's become a buzzword, absolutely. I mean, and yet I think it also matters to people more than it ever has. So I think you hear words like sustainability, or on the beauty side you hear things about green beauty or local or something like that. Like, there's a lot of the kind of greenwashy type words that are meant to sort of exist, in which it creates a space in which you're like, oh, it's good for me. Like, it's good for me, it's good for the environment, it's good for this collective of women in Africa, so I feel better about buying it and participating in that economy. On the more sort of consumer end of things, I think people care more. They hear more. Like, again, I think it ties back a little bit to the idea of the digital and social world in which you're able to be connected and hear so many more stories than you ever were before. So you hear about something like the factory that happened in, the fire that happened in Bangladesh, that was a number of years ago. Like, that resonates more because it can feel closer, because the entire world feels closer. So I think people care about local fashion. I think they care about things that aren't being made by children somewhere, people being exploited so that you can buy this like great t-shirt or pair of shoes. I think that is a shift that has happened and is real, and I think it's only going to continue.
I think that now saying that you're sustainable doesn't really mean anything. It's what are you doing? What does that mean? It's not about somebody trying to be sustainable, it's about somebody trying to achieve something that is conscious, I think. As much as it's like a buzzword, I think that we're going to continue to see that market grow, mainly because I think that people, I don't know, but I think that people are probably oversaturated with all these of visuals and images, and you can kind of, everybody's seen almost everything that there is to see visually, and with fast fashion, you can literally own any type of garment, it seems, for a pretty reasonable price.
If there's no code of conduct on a website, the company probably is not particularly sustainable. There's websites like Labor Behind the Label. There's loads of information out there. So I think the first step is educating yourself. I think it really comes down to building it into a lifestyle and encouraging the consumer to really view it as a lifestyle and not necessarily this is something we all need to band together and do for the environment.
I think that shopping online helps because you can research the brands, get to know the brands, just get a feel for them. I look for layers of authenticity in their website and the people that started it.
For me, my biggest thing is, when you put your clothes on, are you proud of them? Can you speak openly about it? And does it make you comfortable? One thing that's, I think, been important for us is we don't want the conversation of sustainability to scare people or be like, oh God, another like preachy brand. It's not about that. It's really just about like, we want a future. We want our earth still be thriving for future generations and millennials and everyone.
When it comes to sustainability, it's the small acts that matter the most. Through the popularity and power of social media, more and more people are becoming educated on the topic of sustainability and are slowly moving towards making positive change. On the topic of social media, be sure to check out episode 5 of Undressing Reality, which looks at the evolution of the digital influencer as the celebrity of the modern day. Thanks for tuning in!